Hello, class 7. So I hope that all of you are understanding the chapters quite well. So I have posted some of the instructions for the write-up also. And along with this chapter, the study materials from this week onwards, I'll be giving the exercise questions starting from the first chapter. So please, children, write those question answers following the instructions which I have provided. Okay. So today we will start with the next part of our heat chapter, and we will start with the first subtopic, that is temperature scales. In the previous part of this chapter, you have read about the different types of thermometers are present, right? So this temperature, it needs to be measured. So whenever this temperature is measured using different temperature scales, there are two reference temperatures which are being chosen. What are those? One is boiling point, another one is freezing point. So this temperature scales, three types are being mainly present. What are those? Celsius scale, Fahrenheit scale and Kelvin scale, right? So these three types have different types of boiling and freezing points. So firstly, if we come to degree Fahrenheit has a boiling point of 212 degree Fahrenheit and a freezing point of 32 degree Fahrenheit. Degree Celsius, which is also called centigrade scale, is having a boiling point of 100 degrees Celsius and a freezing point of 0 degree Celsius. And the Kelvin scale, which is also called as absolute scale, is having a boiling point of 373 K and freezing point is 273 K. So from this we can say that degree Fahrenheit is written as degree capital F, degree Celsius is written as degree capital C, and Kelvin scale is written as capital K. After this, we'll move on to a particular experiment depending on those conditions of temperature. So what is the aim? To measure the temperature of water at room temperature. So how can we measure the temperature of water at room temperature? So what are the materials which are required? The three materials are required: stand, beaker and a laboratory thermometer. This can be performed with the help of only laboratory thermometer. You have read about this thermometer in the previous class. So this laboratory thermometer is required. Now we will see how this experiment is conducted. So firstly, we will take one beaker, and within this beaker we will take some amount of water. Then the laboratory thermometer is dipped into this beaker, taking some necessary precautions. Now this laboratory thermometer, we all know it has a range of minus 10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. So whenever we dip this laboratory thermometer inside, what will happen? The mercury which is present inside this laboratory thermometer will slowly rise up according to the temperature of this water. And then what we can do? We can easily note the temperature reading, right? So this is how we can measure the temperature of water at room temperature. Now previously I have mentioned that some precautions are necessary for this experiment. So we'll see on what are the precautions. Firstly, the thermometer should not be kept tilted. It should be held vertically. That means what? A vertical condition of the thermometer should be maintained so that exact reading should be present. Next is the bulb should be surrounded by water and so should be completely immersed in it. Why? Because if the bulb is not completely immersed in it, the mercury which is present inside this bulb will not show the exact reading. Third is the temperature must be read when the thermometer is in water. So keeping in contact with the water, the thermometer should be read and the temperature should be noted down. Hopefully this experiment is clear to everybody. So we will move on to the next part of the chapter, that is heat. Now in the previous lesson you have studied that heat is consisting of two types of objects. One is hotter object, another one is colder object. So two objects are present and the heat is being transferred from this hotter object and is transferred to what? To a colder object. And in this process what happens? One thermal energy or heat energy is being helping this process. So we can easily say that the flow of energy from a hotter object to a colder object is called heat transfer or the transfer of heat, and the energy required is referred to as thermal energy or the heat energy. So this transfer of heat, it is having three types of main processes. What are those? Conduction, convection and radiation. In this lesson, we will stress on in the process of conduction, how it is happening. So we'll start on with conduction. So what is that? Conduction is a transfer of heat from a hotter to a colder part of an object, and it occurs where within the solid substances and that are in direct contact with each other. This part is very, very important. That means what? We all know the transfer of heat is happening from hotter to a colder object. But in this conduction, especially the solid substances are involved, and we have to keep in mind that these two substances should be in direct contact with each other. Now we will move on to the process by which the conduction of heat is occurring. So we will see one experiment once again. Suppose there is one candle kept over here and one metal strip is kept over here. So what we have studied in conduction? That the heat transfer will take place from a hotter to a colder object, and they should have been in contact with each other, and they must be solid in nature. So here a candle is a hotter object which is in direct contact with this metal strip, which is again, these two are both solid substances. So we all know that these molecules are present, right? So molecules over here in this metal strip will get heated first. The molecules in solids are very much closely arranged. So these heated molecules will transfer the heat easily to the next part of the metal strip, and one by one what will happen, this metal strip, through this the flow of heat will occur and this whole metal strip will get heated. Okay, so what is happening? A candle is present, it is heating ultimately a metal strip in which the molecules are very closely arranged. Why? Because it is a solid substance. So this part is being heated first. So these molecules are transferring the heat one by one to this whole metal strip, and ultimately the whole metal strip is getting heated. So from this we can easily say that the process of conduction is occurring. Next is good and poor conductors of heat. Now whenever this flow of heat is taking place, the transfer of heat is taking place, there are two types of materials which are present. One is poor conductor, another one is good conductor. So the materials that can conduct heat easily are called the conductors, for example the metals, right? And the materials which do not allow the conduction of heat are called insulators or the bad or poor conductors of heat. For example, wood, cotton, rubber, clay and cork. So these are the examples of insulators. Air and water are also the insulators of heat. And the materials such as wool, feather and fur act as insulator because air is trapped inside this fiber. So as because air is trapped, we have read this air is an insulator. So these materials are also insulators of heat. So next we'll move on to the practical applications of conduction. There are many examples which are present. We will move on to some of the examples. Firstly, suppose while cooking, there are some pans which are being used, which are usually made up of metals, right? Made with steel, copper or aluminium. So as you have read here that this good conductors are the metals. So obviously this pans are the good conductors, but these pans are having some handles which are made up of plastic. So this plastic becomes an insulator. Because why? Because these plastics do not allow the conduction or the transfer of heat, and hence this plastic is not heated up and we can easily hold during the process of cooking. Next is when the bulb of the thermometer comes in contact with hot water, where is this heat transfer? It is transferred from the water to the mercury, right? We have shown in the previous experiment also while doing the measurement of temperature. So once the temperature of the mercury equals to the hot water, so no more less or heat is transferred, right? And the mercury levels also become stagnant or they stops rising. So like this, there are many examples which are being present for the process of conduction. So in the process of conduction, what are the main points we need to remember? Two main points are there. One main point is that the materials, they should be solid in nature, right? Both the materials, they should be solid substances, and secondly, they should be in direct contact with each other. If these two processes or these 2 points are being taken into consideration, then easily the process of conduction will take place. So hopefully this process of conduction is clear to everybody. In the next class, we will complete with the next 2 processes of heat transfer, that is convection and radiation. Thank you, children.